Good morning to everybody, and good afternoon in Europe. I'm Kostas Kapsouropoulos. I am the Science Counselor at the EU, at the European Union delegation to Canada, and I am very, very glad to open and welcome you to the second webinar that we are organizing to facilitate Canadian stakeholders to understand everything about Horizon Europe in order to fully reap the benefits of Canada's association to Horizon Europe. Today, we are going to focus on Cluster 6, Food, Bioeconomy, Natural Resources, Agriculture and Environment. I would like to remind you that this is the second webinar. It is the second webinar in a series of webinars and other actions that we have been undertaking in line with a dedicated action plan to promote Horizon Europe to Canadian stakeholders. Today, we're going to speak and talk and understand better, I hope, how we can master coals in Cluster 6, which is fundamental. This cluster aims at reducing environmental degradation. It aims to manage better natural resources through transformative changes for the economy and society in both urban and rural areas. We are going to talk, and this cluster is dealing with essential elements as it ensures food and nutrition security. What else is more essential in our lives? Food and nutrition security for all, in respect with our planet, in line with knowledge, innovation, and also in line with the digital trends in modern agriculture, fisheries, aquaculture, and food systems. The objective is to have results which will accelerate the transition to a low-carbon, resource-efficient, circular economy and sustainable bioeconomy. The research and innovation activities under Cluster 6 will contribute to the objectives of the European Green Deal, which is the specific policy of the European Union to combat climate change, but it's also very important to serve the initiatives under the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So that's a small introduction for Cluster 6. I would like to remind you also that this webinar is the last before an important roadshow that we are going to undertake in March. The roadshow is organized by our Canadian friends in ISED and the European Union. We will have sessions inside in Western and Central Canada. We will be in Vancouver on 10th of March, in Edmonton the 12th of March, and in Saskatoon on the 14th of March. I would like really to thank ISED for the organization and their co-working in this roadshow. We wanted to be everywhere in Canada. The EU wanted to reach out as much as possible to all provinces in Canada. That's from me to start this beautiful morning in Ontario. I would like to give the floor to Agni, which will give the more substantial elements and also give the floor to our speakers. Thanks a lot also to our speakers for today, and thanks a lot to everybody.
Thank you, Kostas. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second webinar. And for those of you who participated in the first one, you will see that the program is very much coherent. I just wanted to have some housekeeping remarks before we start. Remember that we are gathering your questions in the chat, and we will be trying to answer them as we go. So do not wait until the very end, but rather feel encouraged, to ask as we go. Now, we will start today with a very interesting presentation. You will see that we are trying to invite to each webinar a representative of a different member state. And we are very, very happy to have with us Suraj Jamge, who is the national contact point for Cluster 6. And he's from the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, and he represents the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Nature. And he has a wealth of experience in agriculture. You may know that actually the Netherlands as a country is a very important partner of Horizon Europe in this particular cluster as well. So today Suraj will explain to us how to read the work program for this specific cluster, and hopefully will give us the hints. Thank you and welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, actually a good morning. I'm joining here from the Utrecht from Netherlands. First of all, thank you for the organizers for having us also here to share this and bring our knowledge, because part of the Horizon Europe program is very relevant for our stakeholders, for all our clients. And we also try to encourage. So I work, as was introduced, we are a national contact point here in Netherlands for all entrepreneurs, knowledge institutions, to sort of help them and encourage participating into the Horizon Europe program. We provide all kind of support in form of information sessions or advice, but also provide specific trainings that can help them to better prepare or address what it means to set up such a large, challenging projects.
Suraj, sorry to interrupt, but we're seeing your PowerPoint just on the main PowerPoint window. Would you mind either throwing that in slideshow mode or trying to reshare your screen?
Okay, some technical issues, but doesn't matter. So we are here to help our stakeholders. But then I am actually not alone as a colleague. So my role is to focus on Cluster 6, and that's what we are here for today. And I'm supported by two of my colleagues here as a national contact point for Netherlands. And we focus on specific topics based on, it's a huge program. So we also sort of cater our expertise based on the topics and the destinations that are there. But for today's session, since we have a very short time, 30 minutes, and I was asked, it would be very good to sort of share how to find your way, since Canada has just joined as an associated country since last year. And then it can be, how do you navigate into the program? How do you identify the topics that fit you? How do you understand the Horizon Europe jargon that we often refer to? So I was specifically advised to avoid using those terms, but if I use those terms, I would also try to explain them. But coming back to Horizon Europe, or the Cluster 6 in general, the Horizon, it's the largest research and innovation program of the EU. It follows up the EU priorities that we have, that was also already addressed. So in my talk, I would not go into the policy backgrounds and the priorities that are there behind the work program, but I would just help you identify if this is the right fit, what would make it a right fit, and what do you need to do in order to sort of prepare to participate in this program. Just to give you a quick structure, it is a 7 years work program, and 95 billion has been allocated to this research and innovation agenda. And it is structured in 3 pillars, but today we are talking about Cluster 6, and that Cluster 6 is a jargon, but that is focused on Pillar 2 of the program, and that's the global challenges. So I would not talk about the other pillars today, but just quickly skip to the Pillar 2. And what is interesting is a bulk of this project money funding is actually dedicated to solving global challenges and to Pillar 2 structure, as you can see. And there are 6 different clusters. And today we are talking about the Cluster 6, which is to do with food, bioeconomy, a very long name, natural resources, nature, agriculture, and environment. And roughly around maybe just to pull back and tell what exactly Pillar 2 cluster actually means, all these clusters. So Horizon Europe program is designed in a way to address societal challenges, the global challenges that we have. So in this pillar, all the topics that you would see or you would look at the work program, they are all designed top down. So the commission has already identified these are the problems, these are the challenges that we face, and we are looking for solutions to address those specific challenges. Those challenges are outlined in all those different policy priorities. But then this is how, so in Pillar 2, if you are wondering to join any of them, it's not an independent application. You often have to work on research innovation activities that are often at a TRL, technology readiness level, that we refer to, that are not fundamental research, but a little bit more beyond the starting from the proof of concept to demonstrating phase. So TRL 3 to 5. And you often have to do it together. So you need to be in a consortium. You are working with many different partners, and the partners are not necessarily all knowledge institutes or universities, but they can be NGOs, they can be municipalities, that can be companies, SMEs, government organizations, policymakers, even farmers, end users, you name it. So you can think of the whole value chain and who will actually benefit from those projects. So you can take them into the consortium if they can perform certain activities for it. Throughout the program, when you will navigate the work program, there are certain terms that the Commission uses, and it is to do with, as I said, it is impact focused, the Pillar 2, Cluster 6, they are all impact focused. And what the Commission means by impact is more the long-term effects the project will have on the economic impact, on the society level, on the on each destination that it has identified. And then you will often see the term expected outcomes. And the outcomes is something that is to do with medium or immediate effects of your project results. So during the course of your project and or after the end of the project, what specific outcomes that need to be achieved. And the outputs are actually your results, your projects, your publications, your prototypes that you have made. So that's output. So it's very important to sort of read this critically. What exactly? Often a lot of researchers struggle to define specific outcomes and to identify specific impacts. And this is very crucial, especially in outlining your proposals and projects. So please be careful of not misinterpreting those terminologies, because what we see is if the Commission refers to the word pathway to impact, it is basically all the project activities that you have planned in your project. They would result to certain outputs, and these outputs should contribute to the outcomes. And these outcomes in the long term will in course from 10 to 20 years could help us reach the impacts that we aim to seek. There are different types of projects that you can apply in Pillar 2, and this is also true for Cluster 6. And there are two main types. So all these projects are defined based on the technology readiness level. And the key actions are research and innovation action, which is a little bit more starting from TRL 3 to 5 level. And mostly we see a lot of knowledge institutions, research organizations taking part in this, but also companies. And innovation actions are a little bit more closer to the market. So where you have to deliver the end product prototype, your results should be more closer to market. So there the participation is also a much more diverse consortium we see. So where SMEs and startups or even corporates could play a role. So you have to work with different kind of actors in that sense. And there are certain conditions. There's one action, coordination and support action, that isn't linked to TRL or society net readiness level. Those are more meant towards doing some coordination or supporting a network or disseminating a certain knowledge. These are so slightly different. This is a different action. There are limited of those, but they are not really linked to research activities as such. So there are certain eligibility criteria, and I'm not going to go today through all the eligibility criteria, but in order to apply for any of these projects, you need to work with partners. You need to, because these are tremendous challenges and that cannot be solved by one organization or by one entity alone. So you have to work with different partners across borders. Some of the challenges are focused on a certain region, on certain terrestrial area or certain demographic. So you have to that's why you have to work with multiple partners. And in general, we see this is just the minimum requirement that you have to have one member state and 3 partners. But then we often see, on average, for a research and innovation action, 8 to 10 partners across 10 countries, or even I've seen some consortiums with 25 to 40 partners across 20 countries. So this can really vary as per the project need and what's outlined in the topic. So so be mindful of, you don't have to do all of it alone, but you need to have the right stakeholders in your consortium to address the challenge that has been outlined. A little bit more on Cluster 6, what Cluster 6 is. So as I said, it's a long title, but within Cluster 6, for each work program, the Commission has identified certain destinations where it has to make impacts. And in Cluster 6, we have 7 destinations. And these destinations are named 1 to 7 here. So one of the first one is on biodiversity and ecosystem services. The second one is farm to fork, the farm to fork strategy. So how do you bring sustainable, nutritious diet to consumers? The third cluster destination is on circular bio-based economy. So the topics under this cluster focuses on all sort of circular solutions that use bio-based materials to develop circular solutions. And that's also linked with Destination 4 on clean and zero pollution. The fifth is really focusing on climate challenges and the topics that affect climate actions that are needed at land, ocean, and sea, and also including rivers. The sixth and seventh are more about, the sixth destination is to do with building resilient communities both in rural and urban areas. And the seventh destination is about innovative governance. So solutions for policies, for developing new models that can help improve the governance. You can often see this described in short terms, so BioDev governance, when you look at the topic, then you know, okay, this topic falls under this destination. But right now, the name itself, if you are a researcher, I would actually advise, when you look at the work program, also look at other destinations, the topic in governance and communities, because most likely your knowledge and expertise might be applicable also maybe less in those destinations, and not purely focused on where the research expertise is focused on. This was just an example of how a recently funded Horizon Europe project looks like. And I picked this up because this deals with some Canadian partners here who had applied. So this was a call from 2023 and focused on Destination Zero Pollution. The duration is 4 years. You can see it's clearly a research and innovation action, and they have a budget of 6 million. And what they do this with 15 partners across 10 countries. They are trying to understand how the permafrost, melting of permafrost causes contamination and can cause environmental damage. And then how do you find solutions to address this problem? So really relevant, but important projects are funded, but you need to work with multiple partners. In this one, you see the Canadian universities did not receive any funding because they were not part of program back then, but now it would change. So the work program for 2025 will be coming soon. I wanted to just outline quickly. We cannot disclose it publicly yet, but the information that I can share now is that there is a budget of roughly 963 million made available for the 2025 year work program. And you can see in the first graph the distribution across the 7 destinations on what the funding is allocated. Farm to Fork, the destination 2, has a lot of budget there. So is circular bioeconomy and biodiversity in general, but also governance. If you look at the destination 7, and then in the second graph you see the number of topics that will be funded in each of those destinations. And the last graph, you see how much of those are research and innovation actions, like much more early stage projects, how much of them are innovation actions, and the other coordination and support actions. Some important dates. We expect from the Commission the pre-publication of the work program to be somewhere around April, but the calls actually will open for 2025 would be on 6th May. And the deadlines usually are around September, so and they differ. So you have to be very mindful on seeing when the deadline is and prepare your strong proposal upfront. So a bit more in the next few minutes, I will walk you through how do you navigate through the work program and how do you apply or not. So the most important thing is to make this website, the EU funding and tender portal, your friend, really your best friend, because all this information that you will find will be here and more. So you need to really navigate this to find all this information, and I think it's very useful to go through it way before even to open your account, prepare yourself through how the inside system looks as you do your electronic submissions. So as I mentioned, there are 3 pillars. The work program for cluster 6 is in general every 2 years. There are destinations and there are calls for topics for each destination. But then how do you look for how does a topic looks like if you focus on the topic specifically? So this is from 2023, a topic on the funding and tender portal. You can find general information here on what type of innovation action it is, what the budgets are, is it a single stage, 2 stage. The topic description provides you specific expected outcomes and scope. So that's the topic description that you have to read in order to see if this is a fit for you. And also you have to look into the destination level document of the entire work program to see how does all these topics on this destination add together to the impacts the Commission has emphasized on. So this is an example of I pull it out from a work program of 2023. So if you look at this farm to fork topic, it's to do with innovative pesticides. So it's around 6 million project per project, 12 million total budget. So we expect 2 projects to be funded, and they were funded in this case. The innovation activity at the end of the project should be somewhere around 5 to 6. So the expected outcomes are clearly outlined, and then the scope. So when you would read such a topic, so think along that and see, does my research actually fit the expected outcome of these topics? And can I does it fit? And not just alone yourself, as a whole consortium, do you meet the expected outcome? And in the scope, you have more the specific activities that you can perform. So the topic actually provides you quite some of clues. So we ask you to really have a look and see how it is described in there, and does your project results would contribute to it. And with the scope I already mentioned, that would be the challenge that has to be tackled. So this also you have to see, this could serve you as an objective, so the specific objectives that you have to describe. So you have to be very specific in clearly reading every single word of the topic. And there are sometimes this proposal should perform or should include these things or should do. So those must have to be done without fail. And then there are may do or good to have. So there are clear suggestions on in the topic description on what needs to be achieved by the consortium or by the project in order to deliver. So pay attention to every single word. You might be wondering now, this is a new program, should you apply or not? So in the next few minutes, I would like to walk you through. So having identified a topic, you answer the question, hey, my research does fits, my own research addresses such global challenges, my research fits in terms of the content and the technology readiness level. And my research is also innovative in that sense, it was not done before. So if the answer to all these questions is yes, then you do need to ask yourself, what's in it for me? And does it fits my own company or my own research group strategy in the long run, in the short term? Because Horizon Europe program is not necessarily meant specifically purely to apply for funding. But if you are an SME or a company or even an institution or a small research organization, an NGO, you can take a lot more out by being in the program or in the project. You can you have the network, you get an international exposure. You of course have the latest advanced innovative knowledge that is being developed. You get visibility, you are working with end users, you can hire new colleagues, new PhDs, or work with project partners that you might not be able to work otherwise. But funding is just one aspect of joining such a program. The next question I would also want you to bring up is to see if you have the right people or the right consortium for the job. And a right consortium is often a one that is balanced, that meets all the needs of the topic. And you have all the value chain actors in place. If you're working with end users, maybe you might want to include them or see how does your project results affect them, then figure out how to include them in the program. And it has to be also interdisciplinary. So you have to take into account, do I have a good fit together, and then does this fit meet the needs of the topic? So of course you need to find a lot of partners, because you have to work across the borders to find partners for the program. And you might have a question, okay, how do I reach out to the right network and establish a good network? The first one is very obvious here, is to use your own network and the network thereof. So that's a starting point, but that's not the only way to look for new partners. We invite you to attend brokerage events, info sessions. There are different networks, and I think today there will be other presentations where they can also help, the Enterprise Europe Network, but the Iraq 6 and the other networks can help you identify certain partners where you have to specifically work with certain organizations that you don't have yet contacts with. On NCP network, National Contact Point Network. So we work with other colleagues, Canadian colleagues, but also with Spanish colleagues. So we also help to identify and facilitate in matchmaking. So that's a way to go. So NCPs in Netherlands can also help. And if you have the right consortium for the job, then the last question, or at least one for today, would be: do you have the time, the expertise, and the resources to be involved, and in what capacity? Do you want to be a leader or coordinator in the project, or do you want to play a smaller role in the project? So that's also a very important question to ask, because in principle, everybody who is part of the consortium is a partner. So they are committing certain time and knowledge and expertise and delivering on certain actions, and they get benefit from it. So everybody is a partner there. But you can also take a larger role. You could be probably a task leader in the project. That would add additional responsibilities, additional commitments, or a work package leader, or you could coordinate. Our advice to our first-time applicant or to participants who have not been in previous Horizon Europe project is to not coordinate. To please do not coordinate. This is our normal advice, because it's a huge task, and it's more also of an administrative hurdle. And sometimes certain organizations, companies, institutions lack sufficient support to take up on such a big role. So finding a coordinator elsewhere or work, unless you have worked with all your partners before and you know exactly how every single thing is going to work, maybe there could be an exception that you for the first time coordinate. But we advise just start as a partner in one project, maybe in multiple other projects, see how the whole thing functions, get to know your other partners, and then take up slowly the other roles. So that's often our advice as well to our stakeholders. And of course, the program will be launched, but there's a lot of things that you have to take into account. Now, 2025, there will be only 1 year. 1 year of this is a 1 year program, but often when the 2-year work program will be launched, then you often have like for example 2026, 2027, the calls for both years will be published, so you have enough time to prepare and identify consortium partners. So our advice is to start very early, finding partners, working with on a project, and then after the submission, it goes through an evaluation phase and a grant agreement phase, and then your project can kick off. So when you actually plan your project, you have to take into account it might take 9 months to 1 year before you can actually work on that project. So if you have to work with growing seasons, if you have to take into account any other planning, so that needs to be well thought of. That can happen on the afterwards. So you can only get so many growing seasons if it's a 3-year or 4-year project. So last few things, you really have to aim for, it's a very competitive program. It's evaluated based on excellence, impact, and implementation. I won't go into the evaluation because we have a targeted session for that. But our advice is, as the Commission says, you have to aim for a total eclipse. So every single word in the call topic counts, and you basically are, your proposal is actually also a convincing narrative to show you as a consortium, you all together can deliver on the expected outcomes that the Commission wants to see. We have also established certain support for writing. So there are some annotated templates which I have linked here where we give advice, but this is something we will share later. And the final slide from my side is the key to success for in Horizon Europe is not to ask the EC to fund your innovation, but you have to help EU to solve its problems. And if this comes across, if that's the intention and motivation with all stakeholders and consortiums, if you're really working to address the farmers' needs, the end users, the consumers' needs, and that is going to be delivered through this project, then I think the Commission sees this as a very good project. Of course, it has to meet all the thresholds as well. But you have to work on developing those solutions and not just for seeking a pot of money. That should not be the intention here. With this, I would like to thank now, and I hope it was short, but just touch base into the cluster 6. I'm not even sure how I am with the time, so I could not see anything.
You're pretty good. You're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Surachi. I already see that there are some questions in the chat for you to answer. So you can do that in writing, or you can answer that at the end, whichever you prefer. And I really wanted to underline to everyone who is with us here today that NCPs in Europe, yes, they work for their national institutions, but really their role is also to help the national institutions build the consortia. So they are very important if you want to reach out to anyone in the Netherlands, please do not hesitate. This is why we are exploring this with our partners from different countries in the EU. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see now. We move to the next speaker. Again, welcome Maria Pawłowska, who is an expert in research management, and her focus is on the international research projects on the EU-Canada axis. And she has long years in research on both sides of the Atlantic. So she has this unique comparative perspective that is very rare, actually. And Maria has a difficult task to come to our webinars and to present every time for a different cluster, but still talking about how to write a proposal. So, Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Agi, for that introduction and for highlighting the perhaps challenge of walking through this. I hope everyone can see this. I think the challenge is twofold. On the one hand, I have to talk about this to 6 different groups of people. But on the other hand, it is a huge topic that I could quite literally spend days talking to you about, and I have generously been assigned 30 minutes. So this is going to be a run through for the very basics of what you should be thinking about. Suraj gave you a pretty good introduction, actually, to some of the things that are very important to think about. I will be reiterating some of that just to bring home how actually important it is. But hopefully you'll also get some other tips on what to think about. So this presentation is called The Do's and Don'ts, so that's where I start. As Suraj has said, don't try to convince the Commission you know better what they want than what they've asked for. They know exactly what they want. They've asked for it in the research topic, and either your research fits that or it doesn't, and then it's probably a good idea to not spend any time on this particular call and look for others. Because as has been mentioned, there is a lot of competition for these things. And if your research doesn't align with what they're asking for, there's going to be someone whose research does. So there's just really no point in you effectively wasting your time on this. Time is of the essence, speaking of that. You need to give yourself plenty of time to both plan the project and then to wait for whether the Commission will fund it or not, as Suraj has said. But it's really important to not do things last minute. I have been in touch with institutions around Canada, and I know there is the reoccurring theme of researchers just putting in applications literally in the last minute, not having talked to their research administration staff and support staff. It's not a good idea. It's very unlikely to nearly impossible to get it funded that way. You need to have months, and we usually say it's a minimum of 6 months to plan an application. Understand the EU evaluation criteria. So we're very fortunate here that Bogna will come in just a second, talk to you about it. But what I want to just highlight here is that you're not writing for the tri-councils. And this might be where a lot of your experience is, and that's great because this is Canada and this is what you've been doing. But don't assume that there are a lot of transferable skills or lessons learned from that. These are very different funding programs that ask for very different things and have very different, almost philosophical approaches to research. So please don't put on your tri-council hat and go with that. Really read the evaluation criteria and just give yourself time to learn this new mindset. And choose the right consortium. I won't go into too much about that because Suraj has talked about it. The consortium is really of the essence here because this is how the project will be carried out. So that there are different approaches to this. Again, and Suraj has mentioned some options. It's a big part. It's a very big part of whether you're going to succeed or not. And this is not something that should be done because this is the way you've always done it. It needs to be thought through at every point. And when you're writing up the proposal, you divide it into work packages. I'll come back to that. And you really need to think about who's working on which work package and why. Okay, this is just very quickly, just to run down. This is almost a little shopping list of things you need to do, a little workflow. Look up the funding and tenders portal. For those of you who haven't done that yet, I highly, highly encourage you to get an account there. Anyone can do that. Just familiarize yourself with the interface. Look at the work programs. We're in a bit of a funny time now where there aren't a lot of work programs, not any official ones anyway, online at the moment. But that's going to be changing very soon. This is possibly within weeks at this point. So just sit tight for just a little bit more. And you really, especially in Europe, we would say that the work program, really familiarizing yourself with the work program is what the research support staff will do. And they should assist their researchers in choosing a call. A lot of the time, choosing a call is not something a researcher does on their own, just because the work programs, for those of you who haven't had yet the joy of looking at one, can be hundreds of pages long. And it's really the assumption that a researcher will commit a lot of time to a work program is not necessarily a correct one, we often find. Building a consortium, really big deal, or joining a consortium, there's lots of ways to do it. We'll talk about that a bit later. Networking events, matchmaking services, Suraj has mentioned that. It's also available to you in Canada through NCPs and other organizations, and just events that are happening in Europe that you can join rather remotely or actually in person in some cases. Assigning roles. This takes time when you're putting together a work package and assigning different roles, both in the project administration and just on the technical side of things. This is where months go. This is also where the budget happens. And usually in Europe, you would not have researchers participating necessarily in the budget conversations. I haven't honestly worked on a successful project where researchers had a lot of opinions on budget. They state what they need, and then it gets passed on to research services where, months of negotiations often, depending on the size of the project. And I just put research services there to highlight the need to talk to your friendly research support staff at your institution, for those of you who are researchers. I have had the pleasure of literally meeting people coast to coast in Canada, working with them. And I probably don't need to, a lot of you probably are research services staff, very highly skilled, happy to help you. These are incredible opportunities. They're making sure they can support you. Please go talk to them. If you are a researcher yourself, don't try to kind of assume you can do this on your own. In Europe, no one when I say Europe, I mean also associated countries like Israel, for example, or Scandinavia. No one does this on their own if they're successful. I mean, honestly, it just doesn't happen. I hesitate to use the word impossible. I'm trained as an earth scientist, and we try to never use those words, but it almost, there's, I haven't heard of a single case where a researcher just went out and did it themselves and was successful. So please think about reaching out to your research services staff. So what to look out for. And during the last webinar, these are the two things that came up in the questions. So I thought I'd just spend a little more time on this. In terms of gender, how does the European Commission, and not actually the European Commission, but DG Research, so sort of very broadly speaking, it would be the equivalent of ICET. It's the part of the Commission that deals with research and with Horizon Europe. in terms of how do you define gender, it can be male, female, or non-binary, which is the new development in Horizon Europe. What's very important to remember is that gender is the only aspect of DEI considered in Horizon Europe applications, which is very different, obviously, from the way things are done in Canada. I will also preemptively perhaps answer a question. There is no indigenous stream, for example, to research because there are, for historical reasons, there are very few indigenous populations left in Europe, which does not mean that your experience gained with working with indigenous populations or around indigenous themes like land use, for example, or management of crops in terms of climate change or management of fisheries or management of wildlife, that is inapplicable. In terms of just having experience in that area and that happening with an indigenous population, it is definitely can be of use, but there's not going to be anything specifically indigenous generally in Horizon Europe. What's important is the gender mainstreaming of research. The gender aspect gets assessed in the excellence part of your application. So you need to show how you've mainstreamed gender into it, how you're considering the gender aspect of your research, whether it is female participation in agricultural activities, or whether it's women who work in your lab, or whether it's actually also the gender of the, for example, farm animals you're looking at or lab animals you're looking at. All of that needs to be considered. And here I've just taken a quote directly from the EU materials. Basically, most of the pictures you see in my presentations are either taken, the little icons, or they're straight from EU documents because this is what you will be interacting with. That they actually say that particular attention will be paid to ensuring gender balance in evaluation panels and other relevant advisory bodies. Gender balance among researchers involved in projects will be strongly encouraged and will be taken into account for equally ranked proposals, which means when you list your researchers, you don't only have to consider gender mainstreaming the work you're doing, but also when you're looking at who's going to be doing the work, the more women you have on your team, the more likely you are to be ultimately successful. Because as Bogna will give you the details, there's not a lot of points you can get. I mean, it's a short scale, so it's not like it's 110 points and 107 to 108. It's not that at all. It's very few points. So there are a lot of applications that are ranked equally in terms of how many points they get. And then you are more likely to get funding if you have more female researchers because you will be higher up on the final ranking list if you do that. So this is how the EU is working towards its goals to ensure female participation in research and startups, etc. Open science is another thing to consider. Currently, the open science requirements for the tri-councils are not a lot. That's changing. The newest programs that have been announced are already highlighting the changes that in terms of open science that the tri-councils are establishing at the moment. But what's important is to know that, for example, everything needs to be open in terms of publications. Everything needs to be open the moment it's published, and you cannot fund gold open access publications from your project budget. And gold open access means it's a hybrid journal where some of the things are open access and some aren't. If there are anything in the journal you want to publish that is not open access, you cannot fund the so-called APCs, article processing charges, from your grant. That is something to consider. You can still publish there, you cannot fund it through your grant. Those are sums of up to $15,000. So it's just something to consider. There's also a research data management requirement. So you do need to prepare a research data management plan for every proposal. You need to think about fair data, so making it findable, making it reproducible, etc. That is also a core requirement in terms of research data management. It pertains to metadata. as well. And there's a big focus on reproducibility. Now, if all of this sounds a little overwhelming for some of you, I direct you to your librarians. They will be more than happy to explain some of these terms or assist you with finding journals telling you what fair data is, like the details of how to implement it. A lot of universities following the RDM requirement from the Tri-Councils have also established research data support staff. Please reach out to them. Again, unless you have a lot of experience with RDM, don't assume you can write this or should be writing this on your own. There's reasons why there are data stewards, and actually the European Commission actively encourages data stewards, so people trained specifically in research data management. We find that people who just write up their data management plans without necessarily talking to the right people don't question their procedures the way they maybe should, and don't align it with the requirements of the European Commission. So please do that. And just one last thing to say about open data. The European Commission and Horizon Europe in general operates on the principle of as open as possible, as closed as necessary. So the assumption is anything you can open, you should, and there should be very good reasons for not opening something, which, there often are. For example, privacy concerns with regards to qualitative data in, say, the social sciences. So that doesn't mean everything has to be open, but it definitely means there has to be a reason, very good reason to not open it, because you're assuming you're going to open it, unless you are planning to, for example, patent it. So again, I could talk about this for days. I have been known to do that. So this is just very briefly on the differences between what you are expected to do in Canada at the moment and what the Horizon Europe program expects of you in terms of open data and open science in general. So to the proposal. This is the first part of the proposal, which generally gets filled out by your submission system. So we're not going to spend too much time here. This is information you put into the online system, and it just populates it with whatever information you've provided it. Okay, I'll spend a little time here because there were questions about this last time. This is the budget, effectively. This is the table you have to fill in, and if you think about it, you're asking for perhaps on average 4.5 million euro, which at the moment is over 6 million Canadian dollars. And this is honestly almost all they're asking for. There's one other table with the details, but this is the basic thing. And again, please don't assume that just because it looks easy, it is. The filling out of the table honestly is easy. It's just, I have participated in many project design sessions on different projects, and these things take months, and I have been in rooms with a lot of important people having unpleasant conversations. You are negotiating, as Suraj had said, there can be up to 13, 15 participants from 8 countries, and things get complicated. There's subcontracting costs, there's personal costs that differ between countries, and without going into the details, because we don't have time, because again, we could have just, 3-hour sessions on just the budget. This can get somewhat complicated. Just don't do this on your own, please. I have talked to so many institutions where researchers have gone and just submitted their budgets on their own, even as partners. Please don't do that, because just in terms of indirect costs, in terms of how equipment is going to be priced, or the use of equipment, the lease of equipment, please talk to people in finances to make sure that whatever you're as a partner, for example, the use of your existing lab equipment can be, you can make sure that some of the cost that you paid for that equipment gets returned to you as you use the equipment. It's going to be harder to buy new equipment, but you can find equipment to use and pay for that. That is something to consider, and definitely talk to finance about, especially in lab heavy and a lot of expensive lab heavy equipment, or even stuff where you need materials. Very important to talk to people who actually, deal with the invoices. In terms of the ethics, I just thought I'd show this one part of the ethics. Obviously, look through the whole thing, read it, but this is what I think is most relevant to Cluster 6. So any animals that you might be working with, these are questions to answer. If you just click through the ethics form and just say, no, there's very little to go through. For example, a lot of physicists, chemists, just go through the whole thing and just click no. But this is not necessarily the case in Cluster 6. In Cluster 6, you will be answering perhaps yes to some of these questions. And that these are, the ones I wanted to draw your attention to. If the answer is yes, you will be asked to write a little essay about the ethical considerations that need to be evaluated, and then you need to have protocols in place. Okay, part B. This is the bigger part of the application. This is where you do your grading, where you explain your project. And the first part of it is excellence. And the way we like to think about it is excellence is the what of your proposal. What are your objectives and ambitions, the vision and what you want to achieve. And the commission says, for example, 4 pages in this case. You just really want to stick to the 4 pages they're asking for, unless you have a very, very good reason not to. Which, again, honestly, I've never encountered a good enough reason to not stick to the examples that they suggest. And what's important when you're writing the technical description of your project is to assume that whoever is reading it, the evaluator, is an expert in generally the area that you're working on, but might not be an expert in the methods that you're using or the particular area that you are working on. So whatever you write should be interesting and understandable to anyone, honestly, with a PhD. So I have worked, I'm again trained as an earth scientist. I have worked on numerous proposals in, for example, physics and quantum physics, and I have had to be able to understand the general idea, maybe not the details, for example, of the methodology, but the general idea, and definitely why it's important and what the project aims to achieve. Irrespective of the fact that I'm not a physicist, it had to be clear to me. Same with the methods. This is the part which I find astounding, honestly, that this is where researchers often don't give enough detail. And this is the part, the excellence part is the part where the researchers really need to do their work. This is where they sit down with their colleagues from around the world and figure this out. And the methodology, you have 14 pages for the methodology. There's a reason for that. The commission wants to fund cutting edge research, and they need to understand why the approach is unique, why it's cutting edge, but why is it still likely to maybe not fail even though it's cutting edge. And we all know R&D is going to fail. It's part of the process. You can't always be successful. But what have you done to ensure that you are likely to be successful, and why is what you're doing so exciting? And again, in the applications I've worked on, the methodology part is almost universally the worst part, with very little detail and honestly often wishy-washy and just not enough of the nuts and bolts. And this is where you really want to give the nuts and bolts of your methodology and explain it, and assume you're writing for very, very intelligent humans who really need to understand what you're going through and have enough background knowledge to be able to digest the details. Research data management. I've talked a little bit about that, but this is part of the application. This is part of excellence, which again, there's kind of historical and political reasons for why this is, but it's very important for the commission to know that you will be doing something with the results of your research that will either be accessible to anyone through open access, and the data. The data is really important. You need to submit the data underlying publications to repositories. You can't keep it on in your proverbial shelf somewhere. It needs to be submitted. That's an important consideration as well. And if you're not publishing, the commission would like to know, what else are you doing with this effectively publicly funded research? Are you going to patent it? What else are you going to do with it? So this is something that this is not just a ticking the box kind of exercise. This is something you really need to think about ahead of time. And again, please talk to experts if you don't have experience with RDM. I know some researchers do have a lot of experience with it, and then that's great. But if you don't, again, I mean, I'm repeating myself, but please don't try to do this on your own. It's not going to benefit anyone, definitely not the project and your chances of getting funded. Impact is the why, if you think about it that way. Suraj has shown us that really kind of, I think, cluster appropriate picture of that meadow with the road to impact. And that's part of it. That's 4 pages of how you're going to achieve it. Well, I'll go into a little bit more detail in a sec. But you also want to show your measure. What are you doing to maximize that impact? So basically, this is the dissemination, exploitation, and communication. And there's often questions about what is the difference between these parts of the application, and we'll go through that, but it's just for the purposes of getting you thinking about what might be some of the impact areas that you think about. These are specifically from the Horizon Europe Strategic Plan for Cluster 6. And here are some of the things that the Commission is thinking about in terms of long-term impact. So, for example, restoring Europe's ecosystems and making Europe the first digitally enabled, circular, climate-neutral, and sustainable economy. So here are some details, and this is, I've given the reference for that where you can look up. I'm very aware it's now 2025, but this is the latest document we have at the moment that lists these. Some of these ideas, they are not likely to dramatically change. There might be new ones, but just in terms of to give you an idea of the long-term impact you might want to be thinking about specifically for Cluster 6. And because there's in previous frameworks, there has been a lot of confusion about writing the impact section. And honestly, I have worked with European institutions where there is an assigned person in research support services. This is really important. Again, these are not researchers writing these things. There is researcher input, but there are assigned staff in research support services who deal with the impact section, because it's a particular skill set that does not involve labs, does not involve necessarily a PhD in anything. It involves thinking about how to deal with the output of research. In Canada, we would all think about it as knowledge translation, and these are perhaps the experts you want to talk to in your institution about how to think about this section. And this is taken straight from the model grant agreement, model application, not grant agreement, obviously. And in the application, the Commission tells you what they want. They're very clear and transparent on that. So when in terms of both specific needs, expected results, the measures, the examples they give are, again, the examples present in the application when you download it. So they give you a very good idea of what they're expecting in different parts of the application. Now, again, these are examples. They don't need to be, or really shouldn't even be, the things that you actually put in your application. But it gives you a flavor of what's expected and some ideas of how to develop your own ways of dealing with these aspects of your proposal. There's target groups, outcomes, impacts, again, with very specific ideas. And you can see the spread of them. There's, for example, in impacts, there's scientific, economic, but also societal. We're thinking of a very broad range of topics. Again, it's important every time you think of Horizon Europe and Cluster 6 and Pillar 2 generally, that this is not a basic science research program. And as Suraj has said, and I have said, and probably everyone will say to you, you don't come with an idea you want funded. It's not blue sky research. It's not bottom-up research. It's very much an exercise in very high level, high tech, particularly in this example, problem solving for the European Commission. It's specific things that need to be dealt with. And they have to have an impact beyond the scientific impact, because it's not just a science funding program, Pillar 2 specifically. So just to give a little bit more detail on the implementation side of things, you have 19 14 pages or 19 pages for topics using lump sum funding, which is a bit of a different way of funding. It was introduced specifically because there have been a lot of feedback. There has, let's put it that way, about the reporting requirements for Horizon Europe. So some lump sum funding very much reduces the reporting requirements, but there is a little bit more to do on the application side of things. But there is an increasing number of lump sum funding projects that are out there, so that's something to look into. It was also introduced specifically for first-time applicants for Horizon Europe to kind of minimize the difficulty in terms of level of entry into the program, and it does definitely make the reporting side of things easier. So in the work plan and the resources, this is where you list your work packages and describe them. Again, this is where researchers really have to think what they want to achieve. List of deliverables and list of milestones. These can be tricky, honestly, because this is, you want just the right amount of deliverables and just the right amount of milestones. It's a bit of a balancing game. You don't want too many, but you don't want too few. You have to really think about which parts of the project and where can be tracked. You're really thinking about tracking the project, and this ties very closely into risk assessment, where I'm originally, and probably my name gives that away, I'm originally from Poland, and in Eastern Europe, risk assessment has historically been dealt with, in a way of, oh, I'm so great, there's no risk. That doesn't work. Obviously, it doesn't work for anyone. It hasn't worked for Polish applications, and that they have now been restructured, and people now do admit to the existence of risk. The European Commission, irrespective of your incredible track record and how wonderful a researcher you are, not doing a very thorough risk assessment will not do your application any good. You do want to list all the possible risks to prove that you have thought about them and have realized they exist, and then show how you're going to try to mitigate them. Again, the Commission is giving you a lot of public money. That there's the context of sort of fiscal responsibility towards taxpayers. It's not just, we have to hold on to the money. We are responsible for this money, taxpayers' money, and we need to show that it's A, not being misspent, and B, benefiting European taxpayers, and the European is an aspect of it. So when you think about your risk assessment, you really want to think about the risks and not try and almost sweet talk people into believing there are no risks. If your project is cutting edge, there will be risks, because otherwise it's not cutting edge. So please give that time. Person months, it's something that's going to come up. It's a very kind of EU speak kind of term. It's basically how many people will need to work on this and for how long. And it's very closely tied to the budget. You will possibly, depending on the size of the project, this can be, again, months of negotiations with partners, who gets how many person months for which package, which task, etc. And you do want to do the maths right on this, because funding depends on it. So please give yourself time. The capacity of participants and the consortium as a whole. And this is where you show the Commission you've assembled the best possible team. And I mean it. You have to show how the particular tasks in the work packages tie in with the proven track record or excellence of the partners that you have. You might want to think vaguely about geography, and not necessarily just going with like partners from 2 or 3 countries, or the same 2 or 3 countries in the same part of Europe. But it's really key to show that you have actually thought about the match between the tasks and the work and your partner. Excellence. Again, excellence is such a huge part of it. That doesn't mean everyone needs to be from, a top 10 university, whatever that means. They mean very different things to very different people. And the European Commission actually prides itself on funding institutions not based on international rankings. But it does fund people specifically and groups that have proven track records and have achieved in terms of, for example, the methods or the groups you'll be working with, the plans, the lab methodologies, et cetera, or have access, for example, to huge study fields. That is a big part of Cluster 6. You often need access to particular areas to test solutions. That can also be important in Cluster 6. So just wrapping up, I think I have like 2 minutes left. Talk to you just in terms, I feel like we're throwing a lot at you in terms of what you can next steps and how to take this forward. Talk to your colleagues in Europe and your friendly research administrators. And by Europe, again, Scandinavia and Israel as well. They might be working on projects already. They might be, maybe not actually now, but they might be working very soon on projects because the new work programs are coming out. Give them a heads up that Canada, they will probably know this already, but, just send them a very quick message saying, Canada joined Horizon Europe. I'd be very happy to talk to you about any proposals that you might be thinking about. It takes 3 minutes of your time, literally, if you're a researcher, and you can possibly benefit to the order of, hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars and really exciting international research project opportunities. Read the work program. Now, if you're a researcher, maybe flip through the work program, get an idea of what's in there. And I'd highly would encourage research services staff to look through the work program and think about linking particular calls to particular staff they have at their institutions. That's how the most successful European institutions do it. The research support staff themselves physically walk over to people's offices and tell them, hey, look, there's this interesting call. Do you want to think about applying for it? And then hold their hand while they're applying for it. This is how Horizon Europe gets done successfully. Assemble an international and local team or become part of one, but make sure, again, you always have support locally at your institution. Follow the guidelines. Just don't try to, this is where you really don't want to be creative. Just do whatever they ask for, tick all the boxes, do all the things. Don't try to convince anyone you know better. It's really not the time and place. Assume there's going to be a ton of iterations. I have worked on proposals that have gone through over 100 iterations. Just give yourself time for that. Think closely about aligning work packages, milestones, and deliverables. That is something evaluators actually really pay attention to. And researchers should do the methodology and work packages, and research support services teams should assist with all the rest. Honestly, if you're seriously thinking about, being successful and getting to carry this out, it's very much a team effort. Here are some resources. Not going to go through that. You'll have access to the presentation. And thank you very much. I think I just made it in time, possibly.
Well, you went over time, but it's okay. It was 5 minutes. So without further ado, I will present Bogna Gawrońska-Nowak, who will talk to us about the evaluation. And this time I'm really happy because we will not only talk about the evaluation that happens when you submit your project, but also how your project is constantly evaluated when you are actually implementing it. So Bogna is the head of Eurodata at the Institute of Urban and Regional Development in Poland. And she's also the associate professor at the University of Economics in Krakow. And she speaks to us from Europe today. The floor is yours.
Indeed, all the best from Madrid. And thank you for having me with you. I will share, I hope, the presentation.
Yep, we're seeing the presentation. If you just want to put it in full screen.
Yeah.
Perfect. That looks great.
Thank you so much, Alex. Okay, yes, indeed. Agnieszka already spoiled a bit what I'm going to talk about, that evaluation indeed is quite a complex process. And that's what I would like maybe to share with you. I am combining two perspectives because I was evaluated and I also evaluated. So I hope that it would be a useful experience for you. What I'm going to talk about is, well, I would like to give you a kind of, general overview, but about the evaluation process, trying to split it into two, in fact, important elements. Well, preparing proposal and therefore being evaluated, and then being evaluated when once you have your project. But before, I'd like to share some facts about Cluster 6 that could be useful to consider, although some things have already been said, and then I hope I'll go for some takeaways for you. Okay, what was already pointed out in the previous presentations, indeed, Cluster 6 is quite competitive. Well, at the same time, it has quite nice portion of money allocated, right? When you look at the success rates, then you can see that, in fact, well, the success rate has decreased significantly. Well, it was more than 30% in 2023. Well, in 2024, on average, it was slightly above 10%. But, well, I want to say that it's not actually equal for all destinations. Well, it has quite a huge spread. In fact, when you try to compare success rates for these different destinations, it might be really important for you. I'd like to show you that, for example, if you look at the destination in which I believe you could really contribute significantly, as far as I know, you superb guys in high tech, you can see that innovative governance, environmental observations, and digital solutions in the support of the Green Deal, the least competitive they were. Okay, so, well, yes, indeed, competition is high, but I think that's still a lot of space and an opportunity for success for you joining there. Okay, now coming to the evaluation process in itself. So talking about evaluation of the proposal, that's, as I said before, quite important element of that. But also you must, in fact, consider that you would be evaluated in an ongoing way, as well as, of course, an ex post way, throughout the whole project. And in fact, you need really to understand it, to consider that very seriously at the stage of preparing the proposal. So that's my message to you, that in fact, you need to well understand both of these. Okay, let me talk about proposal. Right, in fact, you will have 5 stages of the evaluation process of the proposal. So stage number 1, it is just, about eligibility check, admissibility check, right? The proposals are being allocated to evaluators, some independent experts. Then you have a stage number 2, when the experts assess the proposal individually, and minimum of 3 experts per proposal is needed. Okay. Then stage 3 comes, and well, consensus stage, in fact, because all these experts, they discuss together. And they need to agree on a common position, right? Including feedback, comments, and scores for each proposal. Then there is a stage 4 panel review. So this is the stage where the experts reaches an agreement on the scores and comments for all proposals within a call. They are checking consistency across the evaluations. And, if necessary, if there's some controversies, some things that need to be really discussed, this is the moment when they have to resolve their cases and they need to agree. And so as a result, we have the ranking of the proposals with the same score. Then, as Maria told you, some details might decide about the success when the same score proposals are being compared. And then finally, there is stage number 5. So the commission agency reviews the results of the experts evaluation and puts together the final ranking list, so you know whether you're successful or not. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so now a little bit about the criteria, right? So there are 3 criteria you need to understand and consider. You would be evaluated under those 3. So there is an excellence. Well, I think that you already heard about it. Maria talked about it. Impact, again, Maria mentioned about it, how important it is. And then number 3, quality and efficiency of implementation. Well, trying to make it a bit maybe more clear to you. So excellence it's about clarity and relevance of objectives, right? Then it's about soundness of methodology, innovation potential, and impact, right? Then in impact, contribution to the expected outcomes of the topic, potential to create economic, environmental, and societal impact. And I would like to stress out that, well, that impact really means that you need to understand what will happen even after, okay, your project. So we are talking about long-term impact, long-term effect on economy, environment, society, and so on. Then number 3, this quality and efficiency of implementation. Well, there is important to understand that feasibility of your work plan and methodology would be evaluated, as well as team's experience and capability to deliver would be evaluated. Okay, about scoring system. Well, I've prepared a bit descriptive scale to make you understand what does it mean to receive a certain amount of points. As you see, the scale is not very sophisticated. It's from 0 to 5, okay? So when you look at 0, 1, and 2, the number of points that you could be given in each category, okay? Well, I must say that, although we say that the threshold is 10, but in practice, really, I must tell you that, historically, I haven't seen any proposal that did not meet at least a 12.5 to win, to be successful. In fact, in all consortia, for example, as when I participated in, we were in 3, I think in 3 proposals that turned out to be successful. We had a level of 14.5 points together achieved. Okay, so it is really true that you need to be excellent. Okay, but anyway, so let us focus at 4 and 5. Okay, so 4 means very good. The proposal addresses the criterion very well, but a small number of shortcomings are present. 5 points, excellent. The proposal successfully addresses all relevant aspects of the criterion. Any shortcomings are minor. That phrase shortcoming, that term is really crucial. I'll come back to that to make you maybe see what does it mean in practice, because I decided to show you a bit, to share a bit my personal perspective of my personal, I would call it, hits and flops. To discuss what does it mean minor shortcomings or just shortcomings. Okay. Scores are normally not waived. Okay. Waiving sometimes is used for some types of actions and only for the ranking. Specific course or topics may have different rules regarding threshold waiving. And for innovation actions, because what I said before was mainly addressed to research and innovation actions, the criterion impact is given a waive of 1.5 to determine the ranking. Okay, this is a piece of my personal story. I just decided to show you the quotations from the review that we received as a consortium in successful application and unsuccessful application. And let us look together at the criterion number 1, which is excellence. So look, how about successful evaluation? What the evaluators wrote in a report. So they underlined that the objectives are clearly presented and they do correspond to the topic description in a work program. Okay, so that it matches well with what actually the priorities are defined in this call. Yeah. The methodology is complex but clearly presented, detailed, credible, and consistent with the theoretical background. Previous research linked to the proposed work reinforces its credibility. And the third important, I guess, remark in this review is interdisciplinary approaches are appropriately taken into account, including various fields of science and a wide range of social sciences and humanities. How about unsuccessful application? What was written and why we were under some criticism. Okay. The proposal does not convincingly demonstrate how the proposed solutions will advance the state of current knowledge. This is shortcoming. Then AI-based system and techniques are an integral part of the proposed methodology, and they are technically and socially robust and reliable. This is very good. However, the proposal lacks, for example, a detailed description of the methodology to be adopted to train, validate, and use the digital tools. This is a minor shortcoming. And finally, the third, the proposal interlinks technical approaches from the natural sciences with insights from the social sciences, which is a good approach. However, the proposal lacks a detailed description of how multiple disciplines will be brought together to assist the achievement of the objectives. This is a minor shortcoming. So trying to sum it up, it's all about clear scientific and technological objectives, about strong innovative research or technological approach, high quality methodology and work plan, and you need to avoid vague language, be specific and clear about the expected results. I would also add, although it's not written here, well, multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary approach is essential here. Okay, how about impact? Now, in successful application, well, the proposal has the potential to achieve impacts beyond those mentioned in the work program. Average solutions are effective for both vulnerable and marginalized groups, and the research conducted shows how proposed models can be implemented in a context of climate and environmental crisis. And then second, numerous communication and dissemination measures are well described. How about unsuccessful application? So the reviewers say, the pathways to achieve the expected outcomes and impacts are credible. However, the proposal lacks more detailed descriptions and justifications regarding the step towards achieving the expected outcomes and impacts. And as you might see, it refers to a specified number as a KPI, 20%. This is a minor shortcoming. The proposal identifies relevant barriers and outlines mitigation measures for each of them, such as, for example, political and cultural resistance, economic, technological, and commercial issues. This is good. However, the proposal lacks a detailed description and justification of barriers, such as those related to IP issues and high implementation costs. This is a shortcoming. Okay? So definitely for the focus for the good, I would say, impact, you need to demonstrate clear, measurable impact on relevant sectors. Don't be afraid to use numbers, okay? Align project outcomes with Horizon Europe's broader goals. Consider sustainability and long-term effects. And I would really underline that third. And present a clear dissemination and exploitation plan. And I can also share this my personal experience that impact causes lots of troubles. And usually what observed, being on both sides, is that impact part has been very much below the, I would say, expected level in many proposals. And it seems like sometimes researchers slightly underestimate the role of that important part of the proposal of the criteria one of this criteria used in practice to evaluate the proposal. Okay, and for the third criterion, okay, in the successful application, tasks are appropriately allocated and all participants have a valid role in line with their expertise and sufficient resources to fulfill that role. In unsuccessful application, overall, the consortium brings together the complementary theoretical and empirical knowledge required to achieve the objectives, although expertise in technological innovation and implementation is not well demonstrated. This is a shortcoming. Right, so for that third criterion, present a realistic and detailed work plan, ensure that the team has the necessary expertise and experience. Again, I would bring on board the issue of multidisciplinarity or interdisciplinarity. Define roles and responsibilities clearly within the project consortium, oh yes. Outline how the project will be managed and monitored effectively. And again, I would like to pay your attention to really reaching out to some, well, I would say, trained in that administrative support, okay? Coming from, I don't know, your research offices, right? Well, you do need some well-trained, I would say, and ready to help you administrative stuff. Okay, you already observed that those minor shortcomings were really present in those, okay, descriptive reviews, some essential parts of them that I showed to you. So I know that maybe this is a kind of new vocabulary to you, not the words in English, of course, but the way it is used, okay, it's very formalized, in fact, because it has a clear definition what is meant by the evaluators when they say minor shortcoming or shortcoming. So minor shortcoming is an issue that relates only to marginal aspects of the proposal with respect to the criterion and easily be rectified if it will not impact the scoring. So, okay, minor shortcoming, if you do have it, not too much, that's fine. Shortcoming is a problem that relates to an important aspect of the proposal. It impacts the scoring but does not render the proposal inappropriate for funding. The proposal still can be expected to lead to useful results with positive impact. If you have a significant weakness, okay, then, well, it means the proposal addresses the criteria in a limited or not the sufficiently effective way. So you'd better not have it, okay? I would like also to point out that you need to be very careful using AI tools, okay, for the preparation of the proposal, because, the AI-generated content should be really reviewed and validated by the applicants to ensure its appropriateness and accuracy, as well as compliance with intellectual property regulations. You're fully responsible for the content. It must be transparent in disclosing which AI tools you use and how they were utilized. And plus, there is another issue that if you have that content, AI-generated content, then, well, some kind of, copying plagiarism might occur, which is, of course, a very bad thing. Now, the second part of this evaluation, okay, that refers to project in itself. Say you have it already. So the project requires regular progress reports, okay? Therefore, it requires well-defined key performance indicators. The key activities, it is progress tracking, regular monitoring of milestones, deliverables, and timelines. And in fact, if you write a proposal, as Maria told you already about it, all of these things must be written in this proposal. It means that you need to be, more than aware of them. You need to plan them. You need to have them. And then in consequence, being evaluated whether you're achieving all of this in time and with good quality. Financial monitoring, okay? Tracking of budget expenditures, ensuring funds are spent as allocated. quality assurance, monitoring of the quality of deliverables and activities, and then risk management, identifying and mitigating potential risk affecting the project. Then you have these periodic reports, okay? Submitted at specified intervals. They include progress made in relation to project objectives, financial statements and cost declarations, work package status updates, risk mitigation strategies. Then final report. It's a comprehensive report at the end of the project detailing, okay, overall outcomes, achievements, final financial statements, lesson learned, and recommendations. So in fact, all of this will happen, yeah. And when you are writing the proposal, when you are being evaluated in this first phase, when you are submitting the proposal, in fact, all of this, to an extent, is already somehow evaluated whether you are trying to design, trying to show something that is realistic, that is feasible, okay? And therefore, whether you do realize, you do understand that there are some important milestones, deliverables on your way to deliver your assumed objectives, okay? Okay, trying to sum it up. So what you should avoid: vague or unrealistic objectives, lack of clear methodology or scientific rationale, overly ambitious goals without a feasible implementation plan, weak dissemination or exploitation plans, not considering EU policy priorities or expected outcomes. What you should ensure your proposal is clear, concise, and well-structured. You should pay close attention to the holistic evaluation criteria and tailor your proposal accordingly, and involve your consortium early in the writing process to ensure cohesion and clarity. And I think that this is what I wanted to tell you, and I look forward to receiving some questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bogna. That was very comprehensive, and I hope that we have now all more clarity. It's very interesting, to see the comments for a successful project are very short, whereas for unsuccessful are longer. And this use of the word shortcoming, right? That even a minor shortcoming can actually kill the project.
Absolutely.
So we have to remember that. Okay, we are a little bit behind the time. So I would like now to introduce our panel with a testimonial. So I'm very happy to have here with me Professor Emanuele Zanini, who is joining from Cork in Ireland, I think, today, and who is a professor and it's cereal and beverage research group at the University of Cork. He's also the consortium leader for Smart Protein Project. And he came today with Rosemary Royce, who joins us from Berlin in Germany and who represents EuroA AG in Berlin, a partner of the project. But what is interesting, this is not a research partner. And we thought that that was really important for you to understand that not all the partners in the consortia need to be research institutions. And we will explore a little bit that experience today. So, Emanuele, can you tell us why you decided to participate in Horizon? What was your idea and how you approached the building of the consortium and the project?
Well, thank you, Agnieszka, for the nice introduction. And let's say that I'm trying to find the right answer to your questions, because I'm still wondering. The reason basically, the first things I did, I just look on the calls on the U programs and see basically if there was any calls that basically fits my expertise, my skills, my knowledge, my background. And then you decide, yes, so I can say this specific call actually needs knowledge that basically I have, or at least I most of them I could actually have. And then I said, yes, potentially I can start building a consortium. Of course, in doing this, what helps is the network of colleagues and scientists and also company that basically you are working with and that basically share the same, let's say, approach, the same, also commitment. This is also another thing, Agnieszka, I think is very important for having any successful consortium, making sure that basically you are working with partners that basically are sharing the same commitment towards the project goals, and they are basically have the common focus. Because 4 years project could be quite a long project, a long time project, in particular for industry. Because smart protein was actually innovation action. So basically, we had a lot of company involved. It was a consortium of 33 partners, and half of them were industries. And keeping them focused and and make the topic, the project topic, still relevant after 4 years is something that basically requires a lot of effort from the coordination perspective, but at the same time also this actually tells you how important it is to select the right partners in the beginning, understanding which are the knowledge gap that basically you need to fill in order to fully address what has been described word by word in the call text.
So now I wanted to follow up a little bit on this with Rosemary, who is a partner. How did that happen? How did that happen that you became a partner, and what was your commitment and the vision of your participation?
Well, within my company, we were since many years active in doing research projects together with small and medium-sized companies in the field of food and food industry, and especially in all these rising topics of alternative proteins, of cellular new cellular meat or fish products, and all the research in that. And in that context, we were also in contact with the German Ministry of Agriculture and German Ministry of Economy, and organizing networks of companies with these issues. And this is how I got in contact with the European in Europe, or let's say on European level, active companies. And so one day, I think I met one of these projects in Horizon 2020, and I said, listen, we should continue that, and I will try to get in contact with the project coordinator and ask him whether we couldn't step in for the next call round and continue that. And this is how Emanuele and me met in a first meeting, where the other person, the coordinator, brought together all his preferred contacts to discuss a new proposal. And that was a very fruitful discussion. And I said, what can I bring? I am not a food scientist, but I can bring our business development knowledge, our research knowledge in terms of bringing together the economical data, as it is an innovation action. And we can, we have a special department for LCA, for life cycle assessment, which is always more or less requested in current proposals. And this is how we stepped in.
Can you tell me, Emanuele, how you envisage the division of tasks between the researchers and the more private sectors, because that this is very specific for this type of actions. did you come to it with already very clear idea, or was it more an organic process?
No, definitely was much more organic process, because everyone actually is an expert in specific fields. But then when you read the context of your projects, you see basically that each of call require a multidisciplinary approach. This also means that we need experts in food technologies, in food microbiology, in LCA, in social sustainability, so in social science. We need expert in agriculture. So you see, it's very, very comprehensive, let's say, knowledge that need to be brought and in the proposal, but also has to be very well integrated, because you need to show to the reviewer that you have a clear idea what you're planning to do, that basically all the knowledge has been assessed and integrated properly to succeed fully on what are the call expectation. So definitely you start with with the core meeting with a few key partners, and then you are doing what is called mapping skills. So you see basically what is missing from your course, partners, and then you are basically building the consulting based on the missing knowledge and missing expertise. And then you go back to your networks, people you met during the conference, or I'm also the project reviewers. So in the reviewing panels, you meet a lot of other peers, other colleagues, and you discuss. And this also helps you to better understand which are the knowledge they have, which are the expertise they have, and what they can actually bring to the table. And you never, my approach is you never, if your colleagues also friends, it's fine, but you need partners that deliver in time. Because as Wagner was pointed out, the work is not finishing when the proposal has been finalized or is being funded. The evaluations going through the 4 years of the projects, and you're going to be assessed every 18 months, and to see basically if you succeed in what you were not planning to do in the way you are actually described in the proposal. So it's a very, precise procedures that basically need to be followed. And then you need to have a fully trust on your partner. That's why the more good the partner are, the easy life you have as a coordinator. Absolutely. And also, when I say it's important to select the right partners in the beginning, is because when I had the Smart Protein, we started a month before the COVID kicked. So you can imagine how stressful it was for the coordinator to, let's say, keep the project running. Also because for this particular case, we didn't put in the contingency plan or in the risk assessment a pandemic. But now actually I'm putting in the proposal. So I'm prepared for this. But at that time, it wasn't. So definitely having a partner that basically are really committed, really competent in what they are performing, reliable, is also another aspect. It's very, very important because the budget is quite substantial, but rightly so, since we are spending public tax money, it's important that basically we are delivering at our best.
So now I want to jump to Rosemary, and then could you tell me what was for you the practical outcome actually of that project? Because your work is very much practical with the companies. How that innovation was actually translated maybe into the market? I don't know.
Yeah, we have a clear practical outcome, especially because our task was very much related to the project outcome itself. So we had simply some business cases which came out. And we had practical results for companies who then, after the project has been more or less finalized, even in the last third of the project, for them it was obvious this is what we can continue, where it's worthwhile to put in money again to get this or that on the market. These were decisions, for example, like food ingredient companies who had to decide, we want to do a concentrate for the new market on alternative protein. And we don't know, would it be better to have a concentrate with fava bean or with chickpea or a mixture or with gluten or without gluten, all these questions. And we had the possibility not only to do the research side of it, but also to do the market side of it. But there is one thing which is important for the companies and which is quite delicate, that the companies don't want to share open data. You don't want to share the data, as it is obligatory and mandatory that you have an open data system within the European projects. And there it was sometimes, and I think Emanuele will see it was very complicated to convince the companies to get companies which are normally even not working together and are competitors, to make them work together, or to share the data in the official system. And that's a real challenge.
If
Thank
I can
you.
add, Agnieszka.
Yes.
In this case, as been mentioned before by Maria, all the results you're getting from Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020 has to be open as possible and close as necessary. So what does mean? Basically, I'm not against by the fact that basically the company involved in the project are protecting the results, but if they are protecting, basically they need to patent. Because that's also is not a dissemination, but is exploitation, and it's still fine. But we need to translate this effort, in a benefits, either for the general opinion, say general public, or for basically translating in innovation and basically also in improving the industry competitiveness and keeping safe without saying anything. Is not the way the EU is seeing, improving competitiveness of European businesses.
This is important. Yeah. Please.
I would like maybe to add one more aspect for the concerning companies. This is time. When a company decides, this is a very interesting topic and I want to learn more about European or Canadian companies who are in the same business, and I would like to share also my knowledge with the research institutes and so on, then they have to make sure that the responsible person in the project has the commitment from the bosses in the company, that they have to put time in it. Because normally this is not equivalent to the costs of time, is not equivalent to what you get out in the company's work. So this is something the companies have to know, that they need time, that they have a collaborator, a person in the company which has the time and the possibility to contribute to the project, because we need deliverables, we need meetings, we need everything. And we had sometimes the experience, not in our project, but more in other projects, what I had really bad experience that they said, not enough money and we are not interested. Finally, after 1 year, our time is used up, but the project is 4 years.
Well,
or 3
that's why, Anita, again, going back to my previous, comments, selecting the committed partners, both scientists and from the researcher from the industry, because all in this way you can actually deliver in a very cost-effective way. And one aspect I think we didn't mention, but I think is important, potentially also from company perspective. All the knowledge has been generated within the consortium. Has been well regulated by a consortium agreement. There is also a grant agreement between the consortium and the EU. So everything has been regulated and must say, in a very fair way. So there is no let's say, a worry from company not to share. Because from my personal experience, the more the company share, the more they get. Because they have for 4 years an amazing team that basically and actually can support them in improving or boosting their business. Something that basically cannot be afford if they will do by themselves. In particular, if we were talking about small SMEs.
Yeah.
So this is a unique opportunity that basically sometimes company underestimate.
This is an important element, I think, and characteristics also of the Horizon framework, that actually it makes the research available to SMEs in a way, yes. Right? And it's very unique, I would say, because this is that this moves forward, and not only EU companies, as far as I understand right now. So this is a follow-up question to both of you. Based on your experience, what would be your advice to the Canadian researchers and companies who would like to participate? How they should go about it? What are your lessons learned as well? Anything?
Rosemary, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I think most important is that you are enthusiastic. You need really to be enthusiastic about the topic, that you really like what this proposal is working on, and that you're also enthusiastic on the idea to work in a group in that consortium, that you're looking forward to meet these people from all over Europe, that you are interested in what and how they are doing their research work, or they are working in the companies, because you get really insights which you normally don't get. And this is not only that you get insight in a topic, you get insight in a way to work, in an approach. And this is something what is very useful, I think. But you have to be enthusiastic.
That's given. Other tips, I would say. First of all, don't start with the coordination. Okay, let's start. Let's say slowly but surely. Be just with the being consortium member. And of course, there is also a tool, if I remember correct, on new portal where you can actually promote yourself. And promote your skills, your expertise. Now, what you can actually bring on the table, and this actually will help, to find this matching, with consortium that basically I'm looking for specific skills that maybe you have. So potentially in this case, you can actually direct to the specific tools that there is on the EU portal, and this could be also very helpful to, let's say, promote yourself. And in particular, when you are new in the business, and so be let's say open and to interact with so many different persons, in particular with different background, different culture, and that's it's also very important because there is always so many things to learn, even though if you think you're on the top of the field. Definitely also it gives you an idea on an approach and a chance to see the problem in the bigger pictures, and really, really help. I'm being in the 7 EU projects, and one of them has been as a coordinator. And for me, every time is a kind of having start a kindergarten again. So it's always happy to see new face, interacting with new people, new ideas. But also the most important thing is because we are doing this for the good for our people. So, and this is, I think, is top of our, or my, I would say, reason why I keep doing this.
And I think that I know that we are sort of out of time for this part, but I noted in the Q&As two questions that are, I think, very relevant for you to answer. So let's do this immediately now. First question was about the possible role for Canadian organizations in Horizon, which is focused on Europe. So shall we really read Horizon Europe project descriptions or the work plan as being wholly focused on Europe? How can Canada actually benefit as well? So this is question number one. And number two, we had a question about the support of external consultants or organizations that support writing the project. What was your experience? So please.
Oh, okay. Yes, here in UCC, we have a very well structured, let's say, approach. There is a public agencies called Enterprise Island that basically support grants, provide grants for the coordination support. Basically help us to, let's say, pay an external consultant to support us for the administration task at the pre-proposal stage. It's very, very helpful because allow me to focus only on science and give the rest, collecting budget and collecting information from each partner, getting the peak number, and also potentially organizing the dissemination sections is very helpful. Don't think you can do everything by yourself, because it will be totally waste of time and you're gonna basically melting down. And no, I think there are expertise over there that basically can actually do the job much faster and much better than what you think. So definitely, as I say, potentially a similar scheme can actually be, implemented in Canada. But for let's say a research institution that basically doesn't have, let's say, a budget for providing this support, there are also a national funding that basically, in particular in Ireland, also in Italy, that support this initiative is very, very helpful, because this actually help you to, let's say, focus on science and making sure basically you are not underestimate other parts that basically are equally important, like impact. Impact can actually kill the projects, even though you are very brilliant scientist. But if you're not able to prove what could be the impact in the short, medium, long term of your outcomes, basically you miss the big point. Every call of the EU, basically most of the time, is not just focusing on you. They're trying to address global challenges. Okay, it is not just relevant for the EU, but it's relevant for all the countries. And one of the key aspects that basically also some of the evaluators are really see as a positive outcomes, how the results can be transferable to a different context, how valuable those results is. This also give you an idea basically that some of the knowledge, some of the technology, can be used. For example, in New Zealand, I have partners in the smart protein that was actually coming from New Zealand, and definitely some of the outcomes we developed has been also implemented in New Zealand. So you see, it's not just for the good of Europe, because the challenge, the scope and the topic are not just, let's say, tailored for European Union, but it's actually globally.
Thank you. But Rosemarie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's important that I think that if you have a proposal and you add a lot of Europeans, and then you add a country like Canada with some interesting aspects, this can even help to get very high scores. It's really an advantage because it shows that this consortium is looking out of the box. And this is why it's not only the European or national look. It's an advantage.
Well, I mean, Agnieszka, in smart protein, we have partnering from Israel, partnering from US, and partnering from Australia.
New Zealand, sorry.
So just to tell you that basically the approach we had when Rosemary say think outside the box. That's the case.
Yeah. Because then you can have, for example, aspects of we had consumer acceptance, and then we can add various continents even, and then that makes scientific results much more relevant.
Yes, on this particular case, actually, when we're developing the food products, the food prototypes, of course, different ethnics have different sensory perceptions. So, and then doing the sensory, for example, in China, help the company to develop a product that basically can actually be also not export in China. So this is actually the way how this project works. The more you are, let's say, the more vision you have, the more impactful your results could be.
And impact is really the key.
Yeah, this is what I'm hearing and understanding, really, right? That the research is an important part, but as long as it actually serves the impact, right? So we don't do the research for its own sake, in a way. We have to wrap up the panel, but we still have the questions. So it's not that you are off the hook, because we will be answering a few. We don't have a lot of time, only 10 minutes to actually do that. So I don't know. I will have questions that I wanted to ask live, and I think that there were some questions to Suraj. So if you want to unmute yourself and join us, that would be good. And I've seen that you also wanted to add to the discussion that we had, right?
Yeah.
So please.
Yeah. No, thanks. And then I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation here, and I think you touched upon very important aspects, including impact and broader participation and involving all actors. So just to touch upon the EU, why does Canada should join on an EU fund project? The Pillar 2 itself is on global challenges. And these global challenges, your research and expertise can contribute to those challenges. And some of the topics are focused on Africa, are focused on Arctics, they're not specifically on one location. So don't limit this from participating. We have also New Zealand taking part, so far away. So Canada in that sense is quite close. So yeah. But I would happy to take other questions that are still, if they are pending here.
Yeah, because you have been diligently answering everything online for the last hour. But yes, we have a question about a consortium agreement. Because it looks like Emanuele made a good point about the post-award consortium agreement, and Heloise Emden is asking, we have had experiences that have made the negotiation of these consortiums very drawn out. Are there consortium agreements that are open source that can be reused or remodeled?
Okay. Yeah. You mean the grant agreement phase? I think
the consortium agreements.
Yeah. I don't know right now how to answer this because I am not involved in those. But there are models and guidelines on what agreements should be made. I think that those are available, and we can maybe later on follow up in a written answer to this question and where
Yeah.
those resources are. I think I also
Well,
put in my slide, yeah, where it was, but too technical right now for me to answer.
Emanuele, you might want to add.
Yes, there is actually. There is a template that basically can be used and be provided by the EU.
So we will probably add that link, because even I think it's easy to find online, no?
Yes. Yes. Also, let me add that these templates, generated and provided by the EU, are in line with what has been included in the grant agreement. Because what is important, the consortium agreement cannot infringe what has been described and reported in the grant agreement. So this is very important. That's why potentially I think the EU is actually providing templates that basically can be slightly modified, but the structure is there.
Thank you. So I also have here a question from Evan Lemieux. Does the portal, so I understand this is the Horizon portal, contain a list of European consortium currently being built for specific Cluster 6 initiative that would be seeking Canadian applied research centers or Canadian farmers to merge with them? This would prevent us from reinventing the wheel and spend considerable time reaching out to existing European partners. So what is your take on this?
Yeah.
Any ideas? Yeah.
Yeah. So in principle, I mentioned there will be roughly 80 topics in the 2025 work program or more. And if you think there's one specific topic where once the program is published, you are interested in. So in the funding and data portal, you can actually click at the link and there will be expression of interest for partners. You can express yourself as partners, or you can see who is offering what expertise, or you can also put yourself forward there. So you can see, okay, who is interested in that call topic. But that's just one place to express your interest and find other consortiums. But what would be better even, and that was also mentioned by Maria, is to ask within your expert networks who else is working on a similar topic and would be a potential partner, and reach out to that organization and taking them along, can we join? And brokerage events, the info days, I think 20th and 21st May will be the info days. They will be online, and on those info days the entire work program will be shared, and so will be matchmaking sessions. So you can already reach out and make meetings and find partners from different countries. So I would invite everybody to also sign up there and find and offer, make yourself also available. If you put yourself like, I would like to coordinate there, then be careful, you will be reached out by so many partners who are actually looking for coordinators. They have a consortium, but they are looking for coordinators. So you will get bombarded for several meetings. But the good thing of that platform is you can do one-on-one meetings online and talk with many different people.
I wanted also to invite Maria on stage, because I see a question to you that you might want to answer live. This is the question about the excellence section posed by Heloise Emden. I don't know if you see that question. So we are repeatedly get told that Canada should not attempt to lead, and that we should seek partnership consortium leaders, that we have track record in managing large consortia. This is limiting. Is it limiting, in your opinion?
I think there are two sides to that question. The first thing is the recommendation that comes to Canadian institutions, and I absolutely understand where that is coming from. There is experience that is just often not there. On the flip side, though, and I speak as coming from, the Eastern European bloc, the so-called New European Union, where we also had to initially learn how to run these proposals and these grants. And a lot of Canadian universities do actually have experience running large collaborative grants, not necessarily EU grants, although again, there are universities who have participated in the previous framework. So my personal opinion is not as clear cut. I have trouble telling people don't absolutely consider it. Although I know that a lot of my colleagues would say that, I personally hesitate to tell people who are, at some of the best research universities in the world and have some of the best research teams to never even think about it. So that, again, my personal opinion. In terms of whether it's limiting or not, I think it's important to understand that the way Pillar 2 is constructed is in itself to an extent limiting by design. You are absolutely supposed to just do what they ask you to. So yes, there is maybe an added limitation of then having to fit in with partners, but that's going to be present irrespective of whether you're a lead or not, honestly, because these will always have to be very collaborative projects. So the limitations of having to work with other institutions and other partners in discussing most every single detail with them will be present irrespective of your role in the project. So I think I don't know if I answered that question really, but it's just it's to the best extent of providing you information on this aspect. I don't know, Aggie, if I said what you wanted me to say, but again, personal opinions. Thank you.
This is important because I think that there is underestimation of the role of the partner, even in the excellence section. The partners actually have a big impact on that part, no? Because they have to showcase that their own skills and their own expertise, and they have the space to do this. Am I right, Emanuele?
Absolutely. Every partner basically has to play a role. And as a reviewer, I can easily spot part of basically the consortium that doesn't do nothing or it doesn't fit in the consortium. So, and then you say basically the budget is not well distributed, or this party is not contributing. There is no reason why this party in the consortium. So definitely, even though you are not, let's say, a coordinator, or you could be a work package leader, you could be a task leader. Everybody has a key role, and this role has to come out quite clearly, in the excellence sections of the proposal.
Raj, you want to add something?
Yeah, and I think this is also where how I think was also brought before by Bogna about how this is being evaluated in the methodology section if everybody has a role to play. But I also wanted to bring a new jargon here now. There is something called blind evaluation that is being piloted. And in the blind evaluation, actually, you are not even allowed to reveal who are the partners. And so this excellence has to be judged based on the science and what kind of innovations you're going to develop. But you cannot say, oh, we are the best university in the world in agriculture in Netherlands without naming. That's if they can find out. So we can have a whole webinar on blind evaluation and what it means and everything. But the commission is also trying to see how we can sort of evaluate it blindly without being biased to different countries and different sectors, just judging based on science and what they promise to deliver, and if they have the right stakeholders to do it without revealing too much identity. Yeah. So
yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah. Well, we are over time, so we have only 10 minutes left, and we still have one more speaker before we wrap up. So I just want to say there was some comments about the lack of the grant writing support at the Canadian universities. And there is not really a big advice is think about it that when you are a partner, your maybe writing load is lesser than if you are a consortium leader, and you can probably discuss everything with your team leader. This is the only advice we can give. Okay, thank you very much. And let me invite to the stage Jackson Howard, who will speak to us very quickly about the European support for Canadian researchers. And he is the representative and the team lead of Euroaccess North America. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Agnieszka, colleagues, everyone. I will be extremely brief, as you said. Feel free to let me know after a few minutes if my time is up, and I can wrap up in a quick moment. I will share with our hosts a PDF version of this presentation afterwards. Really, it's just a collection of a few slides to let you know what's available to you as researchers of any nationality based in Canada who are interested in connecting with Europe, whether that's as a participant in a cluster 6, a pillar 2, cluster 6 open call, or in any other sense of the word, including some of the pillar 1 mobility programs that are not the topic of today, but that are still under the wider umbrella of Horizon Europe. So I'll prepare to share my screen. I've shared a link, several links in the chat actually, with all of our social media channels, but the very first one is to what we call our flash notes, which are bi-monthly emails to be sent every 2.5 weeks with a small collection of news related to transatlantic research innovation events, much like this one, which we've promoted, our own events, European Union delegation events, ISET Canada events, et cetera, and then very specific funding opportunities as well. So my thought process that I explain to people is take 2 minutes twice a month, skim the email. If one of small items of those is of interest to you, then you can dig further and hopefully continue down the path to getting more involved with Europe. So I'm sharing my screen here. If there's any technical issues, I hope my friends can let me know. Other than that, I'm just going to try to minimize some of my windows here. So again, is Euroaccess? I should just really underscore that we are a free resource for everyone of all nationalities. We cover Canada and the US. We're based in Washington, D.C., but we cover both countries, and we travel to Canada frequently. And of course, virtually, we're always available to present. We are not NCPs, so my great Dutch NCP colleague, friend, and your official resources also at the EU delegation are excellent. I think we are a very important addition to your wider toolkit. So we're very complimentary when it comes to, if you have any and all questions, feel free to ask us directly, ask us in copy. We ultimately, if we don't know the answer, we will help shepherd and guide you to someone that does, whether they're an EU or a Canadian government, let's say, resource, regardless of where they're based. So within a couple business days, usually we can get an NCP on either side of the Atlantic to help answer your question. And we oftentimes will be a major source of support for Pillar 1 because Canada does not have NCPs, national contact points, for those mobility schemes under Pillar 1, which are the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, primarily the post-electoral fellowships, and the European Research Council grants. So I'll very quickly just give a couple slides of overview to say that, again, we are an official EU project. So this is our day job. This is what we're paid for. It's to provide you information, support services, regardless of your career stage. So what we basically mean by this is if you are a prospective PhD, all the way up, whether you are a researcher yourself or you're in administration, you support researchers, our job is to help plug you into Europe. And that goes in the other direction as well. Oftentimes Europeans will come to us and say, we want to get closer to Canada. We want to target this province. We want to look further into XYZ domain or field. And we'll help in this case in both directions. One of our core mandates is to support mobility. A lot of this falls under Pillar 1, but then again, under Pillar 2, you'll be collaborating with a global network, not just European, not just Canadian, but a highly global network within your consortium. So we are looking to support you however we can on that. And again, I know this has been laid out today, but I really just want to underscore that we're an EU project. But when we're talking about Europe, we're not only talking about those 27 EU member states, we're talking about approximately 45 countries that historically I used to say are all in the European neighborhood. But now with the Great Association of Canada, and right before that, New Zealand, and provisionally as of January 1st, South Korea, I can say it's truly a much more global program. So everything we do is free of charge. There's really no question too small or too big. Either way, our job is to help support you. So you've all seen the famous infographic. I just want to share basically some boxes around our core areas of expertise or our mandate, which again are pillars 1 and 2. And that 95.5 billion euro over the 7-year period, it converts roughly to over 143 billion Canadian dollars. So our job is to help you get your share of the pie, let's say. The Euraccess website is the bread and butter of Euraccess services. So regardless of if you're on the Euraccess North America website or a European specific country page, they'll all follow the same interface, which includes a jobs and funding portal, which in that exact same interface, but a different drop-down menu, you have partnering tool and hosting. Hosting primarily will be for Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, or Marie Curie, the MSCA postdoctoral fellowships in either direction. So if you are Canadian, this is not the topic of today, but if you're Canadian university looking to recruit some postdocs and have their salary paid by an outside entity, in this case the EU, post your hosting offer on the portal. Anyone can post, any entity. It's completely free. It's not limited to, let's say, it's open to the social sciences and humanities. It's not only the STEM fields, and it's open to all countries. So really Canada, I would encourage any school or private entity in Canada to post to that portal. There's also a lot of career development tools, especially during the pandemic. A lot of the number of online interactive webinars and trainings exploded. So all of this is archived and available there. And there's country-specific, region-specific, and field-specific expertise in what we call Euraccess service centers. There's over 600 of them all throughout Europe. And in addition to that, as I mentioned before, the national portals. So if you want to know about the visa conditions to enter France as a non-European, if you want to know as a Canadian how to pay into Social Security in Poland, whatever the case is, each country has a portal and official contact points who will assist you in that language and or in English. Which is a great tool. And then, of course, in parallel to this project is Euraccess Worldwide. We're the non-European component of this. So we're the very last one here, I think alphabetically. So my colleague and I, we're a 2-person team. Our job is to be your points of contact for Canada. So I know you're familiar with what these countries are. Under the non-European side of this, we also have Canada, New Zealand, and South Korea that are in the fold here. But all of these countries have Euraccess national portals, and all of them, with the exception of Switzerland, are fully in the Horizon Europe program. So when you're thinking about partners, you have the usual suspects, but you have countries here that you may not have naturally been looking for partnerships in, but that are on the exact same level playing field as you now under Pillar 2 is Canadians and is all other EU member states. So please take a look at North Macedonia, take a look at Tunisia, complement your existing search with all the other countries you see here and see who your potential partners can be. So I'll close out just by leaving you with a quick screenshot of our interface. So this is obviously the Euraccess North America website, but all of the Euraccess websites follow the same visual guidelines. You'll see that horizontal blue strip at the top. I mentioned before that jobs and funding portal on the top left. And then you can find, if you're on the main Euraccess homepage, you'll see that worldwide tab at the top. It'll take you to North America. And if you click that big yellow button, or you click the link in the chat, the very first URL that I shared, that will show you how to sign up for a membership. Membership to us simply means, do you sign up for our twice a month flash note emails? You can unsubscribe anytime with 2 clicks, and you can also just use your smartphone to scan that QR code if you'd like. And then again, on the very bottom here, we have sort of our main daily updates that we categorize as news or events. But then also one of the main things we do in addition to all of this is we try to plug researchers and universities, institutions into diaspora networks. So some of these are funded by their governments. For example, the Spanish, there's an active Spanish network of scientists in Canada for both Spaniards and those interested in Spain. We catalog as many of these as we can, and we put them here on that tab there. So please feel free to reach us if you think we can help connect you to some additional resources that are not just the country of interest for you, their embassy or their science foundation, their research foundation, but also some Canadian entities as well. So I will leave you with this. This email address is a shared inbox that goes to both my colleague and I. If you write both of us, we'll reply with our direct individual work emails with the other one in copy. And then, of course, we're on all of the major social media platforms. So again, I'll encourage you to sign up for our flash notes. And I think my closing comment will just be to highlight again the fact that ICED Canada is hosting a 6-city Horizon Europe roadshow next month, where we'll be making in-person only, there's no hybrid component to this, stops in major cities throughout Western and Eastern Canada. You can click the last link I've sent in the chat and register now, and also just take a look to understand the dates and the venues. But I look forward to joining as an eager attendee the other cluster-specific info sessions coming soon. So thank you to our hosts for the amazing information, and to the panelists and the other speakers for helping deepen my education. I'll be very happy to remain and answer any questions in the chat or Q&A, but then also please just reach us outside of this webinar at that email address or social media, and we'll be really happy to keep the conversation going with you and try to support your continued research with European partners. So thank you all, and I've really learned a lot today.
Thank you, Jackson. So I think that this is the time we actually close this event, because we are already 2 minutes after the time. And I would like to ask Kostas to say the goodbye words.
I will say goodbye, but first of all, I would like to thank all the speakers for their great expertise that they have shared with us. I would like to thank you, Agnieszka, for you have been an excellent moderator. But let me also say a big thanks to all the participants with their questions. An ancient Greek philosopher was saying that through asking we learn. So many thanks for this informative webinar. What I retain very, very quickly, and I would like to stress that, I heard that you must be enthusiastic, you must like the topic that you are asking to participate in the call. And I also retained the idea of being in a group with different approaches, with different ways of working, but to be in a teamwork. That's so important. And last but not least, that the research must have an impact. That's exactly what we are trying to do with the Association of Canada to Europe, to bring closer European and Canadian researchers and companies to work in research with impact, to work with impact for good. That's what we are trying to do here. And that is particularly, I think, important in the current context. So Jackson mentioned that the next steps is the roadshow that I mentioned also in the beginning, the roadshow in Vancouver, 10 March, Edmonton, 12 March, and Saskatoon, 14 March. And that will be, this roadshow will be on site. And the next webinar, because we continue with these fantastic webinars, is on the 20th of March. It will focus on cluster 4, digital, industry, and space. Equally very, very important. So stay tuned. There is more to come. We're working together with great pleasure. Thanks a lot.